Welcome to District 4, the best place to be for information and news. I am your host, A Love. I want to give you guys a chance to come in, and also I have really bad allergies right now, so you're going to hear a little congestion. I probably look like my eyes are red or possibly. So that's all related to my allergies. Not that you need that much information, just wanted you to know. This one is going to be something you probably want to take notes on. You take notes on all of them, I understand, but this one is a little more terms we're kind of define here, so just be prepared for that. We are titling this Broke, Want to Start a Business. Now, there's question marks on those because you're thinking, yeah, but I'm broke. Or you're thinking, yeah, I started a business, but my business is broke. I got you. We're going to cover all of that in here today. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes, then we're going to move forward. Hope everybody's day is going well. So welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Hello. Okay, so let's get started. We don't want to take up too much time, I titled this Broke and Wanting to Start a Business, or Broke and Can You Start a Business? Either way, the answer to that is probably shocking, because the reality is starting a business is just like having a child, right? Sometimes you plan for it, sometimes you don't, sometimes you're prepared, sometimes you're not. And then it's the matter of whether you decide to just go ahead and do it. And you will find struggles, difficulties, everything else all compare the same no matter how you start or when you start. You're still new in the business world. That's it. So my advice, not advice, but if you're asking that question to answer my own question, sure you can. And sometimes you can't do it when you don't have anything. But you have to be capable and smart about it. And it applies to finances. Now, I have to apply to finances. It's the financial literacy section. So you're saying, yeah, I can start a business. Maybe you can bake cookies, right? I always use that as an example because it was kind of an unusual one. Speaking of Mrs. Fields, right? So you bake cookies. That's what you do. And you're thinking to yourself, I've got 5 kids, I'm on welfare or whatever, I live here. You can still sell those, right? But whether or not you turn that into a business and make a profit at it is how much literacy you have, you see. Because in real life, you already have a business. You have something that you do that you're talented at, or that people recommend or ask for, right? People just come to your house all day and they're like, hey, you made, this game up that I thought was kind of fun. Can we play that? And you're constantly doing that. That is a business. So you don't need money to have a business in quote unquote, right? You need to know how to manage your money in order to start one. See? So we're going into mindset a little bit because, again, I'm trying to disband all the myths and rumors that you have to have money to make money, that you are already financially set if you have a business and your business is working well. I speak to all of those people. I speak to people that don't think that they're capable or have anything. I speak to people that already are going well, and I speak to people that are just going well but are making mistakes that they've been lucky hasn't crashed their business by now, or just hasn't crashed their finances by now. In this particular case, we're talking about business. So the first part is, and particularly if you're new, let's say, okay, you're baking cookies, right? And every time somebody comes to your house, they're like, hey, can you make those, macaroons you make, or whatever that cookie is? And you're like, okay, fine. And you realize, I think in the back of your mind, you say, I think I can do something with this. I think maybe I don't want to charge my friends, but maybe I can charge other people. Are they that good? And so you decide, okay, I want to sell them. recognize first that this is the beginnings of you starting a business. I don't care where you are. You could be in your own kitchen. This is the beginnings of that. So you want to recognize that first. And then secondly, where do you go from there? This is where a lot of new people or people with broke mindsets get stuck. Because they're like, okay, I can make cookies, just use that as an example, or I, can fix things, maybe you're a good mechanic, or I, am very strategic in my thinking, so I'm able to help businesses, I can consult. Okay, fine. Whatever it is, that's the inception, meaning the beginning, that's the start of it, right? Where do you go from there? So let's say you start, selling cookies now in a little booth on the side of every time you go to, I don't know, an event or something. Realistically, those are like lemonade stands. Remember lemonade stands when you were little? You're just like out there selling lemonade in front of your house. There are booths at events that act as this version. It's a fancy lemonade stand, right? So don't be afraid of that, right? That's a good start, right? You can sell your cookies there. But either way, whether you get a booth or at an event, or you sell it outside your house, or you sell it outside your kitchen, you're going to start making money. You're like, yeah. So great, right? Not great if you don't know what you're doing. This is where the top financial advice I'm going to give you, which is number one, don't get blinded by the top of the line. Right? You're like, you mean the bottom line? No, I mean the top of the line. For those of you that are already just having a business, you're thinking, well, you mean bottom line, Alex? No, I don't. I mean top of the line. I mean, a lot of times when people start making money, oftentimes it is more money than you had from before. I don't care what level you're at. You had $1 million and you start making 5 million, that's still more money than you had. If you have on welfare and you start making, 60,000 a year, just selling cookies outside of your house, but you're not calculating that, you're not paying attention to that, and you're just happy to be making money on the side, this is where your mindset's gonna kill you. Because you're gonna start going, well, let me go buy. The first thing that comes out of your mouth is what you're gonna purchase. What bills you're gonna get caught up on. You're not gonna be thinking to apply that money back into the business because that's not what you have it started for, technically, right? You have it started for because you want to do well financially and better than what you're doing. And once you start doing that, you get blinded. So when I say the top line, I mean, when you start getting money coming in, automatically you're gonna start getting blinded, especially if it's more money than you've ever made before, right? Maybe you get to the point where all your bills are paid by these cookie sales, or anything extra you ever need comes from that cookie sale. Or if you want to run out and buy a new car, you can afford to buy it now that you have basically at this point a second job, right? You don't call it that, but you basically have a second job at this point. So you're all excited. Oh, I got my business. I'm going to run out and buy it. And that's when you start messing up, right? You're like, but I'm buying things for the business. That is another mistake, right? We're going to put that into the bottom line, right? Because ultimately you're going to start spending off the top. And that's what I'm trying to get you to look at. That's not what you want to do when you're trying to get your business to grow. You do not want to start spending off the top. When you're in your personal finances, you'll hear me say pay yourself for all these things. Yes, but not in business. So tip number 2, separate both. Your personal finances could be in shambles and your business could be doing really well if you have good people running it, and vice versa. But you need to separate the two. They're not the same. You can't put your business finances and your personal finances and you're running them all out in the same way because they're all being provided by this cookie sales. Don't do that. You have to separate them. Because ultimately one of those can go broke and not the other, right? Or they can both go broke as a result of you combining them. But you have to separate them. That's tip number 2. Tip number 1, can you start? Yes, you can start anywhere at any time doing anything. Doesn't matter. Just make sure, if you look at my other videos, please go back and look at them when I'm talking about your personal finances. Check your proficiency level, right? Look at the market. You hear all these terms and you're going to be like, what is she now? You lost me again, Alex. I don't know what you're talking about. Going over my head. What do you mean look at the market? You have to look at the market, right? Go back to my other video. It's a need. Is there a need for what you're doing? Doesn't mean anything if you're just good at something that nobody really needs right now. It's not to say that they won't ever need it, but they don't need it right now. So go back and look at those videos. I know you guys are looking at them because I see. You're looking at them, you're taking notes, and you're re-looking at them. Same thing you kind of want to do with this video, because you have to do tip number 2. You have to do number 1, which is to just do something that you're good at. Start. At that point, consider it a second job because of number 2. You have to separate your finances. You have to separate your business from your personal. I cannot tell you the mistake that people make all the time is just combining the two. It's all one thing. And ultimately, you won't grow. And that's not good, right? The whole point of having a business, hopefully, is to have it grow, right? So you really, if you don't know this, want to get to the point where it runs itself. If you're there all the time, say, I work for myself and I have a business. People say this all the time. I work for myself, I have my own business, blah, 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 and everything's great. And they're there like 24 hours a day. Like, you don't really, I'm like, You're there all the time. You don't have time to do anything else. You don't really have a business technically. Your mindset is that you have one because you feel like, I don't have to work for anybody else. They're not setting your time, but you are putting more time in because you're there all the time. Ultimately, if you think down the road, the point of having a business is that you're not there all the time, right? You can get a good staff and have them do the day-to-day operations, right? Okay, so I know this is a lot. You're like, well, okay, so the third thing is, it's a huge mistake. It's really huge, and people diversify too early. Now you're like, oh, here she goes with the big word again. And people are like, what do you mean diversify my portfolio? No, we're talking about your business. So we're talking about you start building relationships with other people too fast. You start expanding into other types of extensions or expansions of your business. So using the cookie company as an example. So you have a cookie company. You're good at making cookies, right? And you think to yourself, well, this, macaroon is just killing it. It's killing it. So I'm going to expand my brand. And suddenly you tell yourself you have a brand you don't have because I can make good peanut butter. So now we're going to move on to peanut butter, and you go and you start building peanut butter relationships. And I'm thinking to myself, no. How long have you been around making these cookies? Have you separated your finances? And can you pay your bills separately from what you're using for your business? Are you putting money back into the business? And are you still in your kitchen? Which is fine. I mean, you can actually stay in your kitchen. People have this misconception that you have to move to and all. You don't have to do any of that. You can stay in your kitchen. That's perfectly fine. But it's how you're diversifying. You're going into different markets. This goes back, and I have to put these two together. 3 and 4 go together. You stop paying attention to the need. This happens when your business is full-fledged. You are a lawyer. You've been a lawyer for a billion, jillion, 29 years you've been a lawyer. And you're going along, and all of a sudden you decide, well, I can skim off the top. Because I want to do this. Whatever it is that you're trying to do on the side. That's going to kill you, right? It's going to kill, because ultimately it's going to catch up to you. I don't care how long you've been in business, and I tell this story every single time. People do not believe me. It is worse to have had and lost than it is to have never had. I know each of the longings are different, but it's difficult when you have a taste of something and you suddenly, it's gone. And those of you that have had to liquidate or scale back or lost a business or went to jail because you did something illegal, you know what it's like to lose everything. It's absolutely horrible. So, and it goes back to you not understanding that fundamental principle, right? It's important. You have to know that you cannot diversify too early, okay? Because it takes your focus into other directions. Not to say that you can't still be, people are like, what are you, Alex, stop it. When I started my business, and you're gonna go into this long story, which I've heard them, okay? I understand. I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't see it was a consistent problem. Look at my videos. I only talk about things that I have seen consistently over time not work. That's how I even started talking about this in the first place. It's seeing the consistency of stuff that over time did not work. It does not work over time if you diversify too quickly. It doesn't. You get lucky and you'll go a long time. You go a long time doing something wrong. I promise you. I have personally been lucky sometimes and then got caught by something that I did a long time and it was not correct. And those are the people that are talking to me now. They're like, what? When I started, and they're saying a bunch of stuff, but it does catch up to you. You can't do something wrong for, and it not catch up. Now you can go a long time. You can go a long time. You can go a really long time. And this is why people don't get it. When they finally they're like, I don't understand why my business is losing money. Like, I've been in business for 10 years, or I've been around for 5-6 years now. And I've been doing this for 3 years. And you don't understand why your business suddenly stopped making money. And people panic, right? This is what I'm trying to talk to you about to get you to avoid, right? I'm trying to get you to avoid the panic. To recognize that you could be doing something correct for that time and suddenly it changes. That's because you got lucky doing it in the first place. Do you understand? So this is going into the mindset of starting a business, right? You diversify too quickly. You are looking at the top of the line. It's so easy to do. You're thinking, I got the bottom line, but you're not looking at that. You're really looking at what's happening at the top of it, especially when you first start. Especially if you were broke when you started. I understand, okay? When you were broke and now you go, the excitement, and you're working for yourself too, you're like, oh my God. But it's down the line that I'm trying to save you from trouble because it's worse. I'm telling you, when you get there and you think you're doing well and suddenly your hair starts falling out, you start burning out, kids are growing underneath you, your marriage is in shambles, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening. It's because you didn't really have a business. You were there 24 hours a day. What you did was work 24 hours a day for yourself, which is not where I'm trying to get your mindset to go. I don't want that for people because I can see the exhaustion that comes with that. And ultimately, you can't do everything. I get it. Superwoman complex. We have been telling ourselves that we can have it all. That is a lie. Men that, can avoid their families and just to work and think that they're going to keep their families. It doesn't work like that. And everybody knows the obvious one is if you're skimming or cheating off your own business. I mean, if it's your own company, it's still embezzlement, right? Embezzlement means it's going to affect the company, right? You're looking at the top of the line and you're skimming off of you're stealing from yourself ultimately. And I know no one looks at it like that. They're like, what? Oh, needed a car. I wanted a BMW. You're making the same mistakes you do in your personal life, in your business, but you don't see them right away. Here's the difference between business mistakes and personal finance mistakes. Business mistakes, you don't see them right away. You just don't. You can go years making the same business mistake, and like I just said, and just not get caught. I'm drilling that into your head because business mindset, the same I did with your personal finances, I have to drill into your head and sort of break down a lot of the myths with your business finances as well, right? And for those of you that have followed me faithfully, first of all, thank you. And second of all, I'm going to do that because I can't have you take financial advice that's surface and then later down the line, you're back struggling again. Or, like the ultimate happens, and something happens and someone takes your business from you. That happens. Somebody that recognizes you're doing a mistake. This is a bonus. I want to say this. Collaborations, be careful, right? Be careful. Be careful, and particularly if the person that you're collaborating with sort of has a habit of this. If you look at a lot of successful business people, they're not collaborating consistently all the time with different people. Not doing that. And I'm not saying that they don't have collaborations, but the rarity of that is that they really thoroughly checked the situation and let it extend itself for a couple of years before they even consider that. Okay, so keep that in mind. You're a startup and you're like, I need to network, but you need to network if you're personal. You don't need to network your business. You see, I tricked you. I'm letting you know now you have to separate the two. I have to do this. I have to do it this way because there's the resistance that's going to be there because this is new information. And even for people that have been doing something for years, they don't like to hear anything new either. They're just like, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need you coming in here telling me, you know what I mean? So I have to trick you a little bit. The goal and the point of that is to separate it, right? Your thoughts and decisions that apply to your personal finances are not going to be the same as the thoughts and decisions that you have to apply to a business. And similarly, not the same once you've established your business as it is when you started it. Now, you think on the surface that makes sense, right? Okay, of course you're going to have to change. But can you tell me why? No. Some of you made the mistake, yes. But for many people, they don't know the answer to that, right? And the reality is, it goes to the next one, which is you have to check your timing of growth. And there's only one way to do that, really. You have to be paying attention to what changes are being made around you. Now you're like, what does any of that? That's a long sentence to say. It's a long sentence to say, check the meter. Just because what you were doing was super, popular at the time, and you established what you thought was a brand at the time, doesn't necessarily mean that that's true 3 years later, 4 years later, 10 years later. You're like, well, my brand speaks for itself. No, a brand is only a brand if it sustained itself over a period of time. That's it. You may think you have one, but you don't. It must sustain itself over a period of time, right? Because you have repetitive customers, right? Or people, or whatever your business is, clients. It's repetitive. But even they leave brands if they're not as good as they used to be. How many times has that happened? I used to buy, Tylenol, for example. People still buy it now, but back then Tylenol was it was the staple, right? There's no disrespect to Tylenol. Tylenol's a great brand now, right? But they had to rebrand, right? Because they couldn't stay. Because what ended up happening at one point, before they had the safety caps, I'm getting ready to date myself, but I want to make the point, before they had the safety caps, somebody put cyanide in the Tylenol, and people were dying, right? This is not Tylenol's fault, and this has nothing to do with Tylenol's brand. Tylenol itself was fine. But the fact that this happened kills even the repeat customers, right? That's an unforeseen circumstance. You hear me talk about that all the time. Be prepared for unforeseen things, right? So if Tylenol would have just continued the way that they were doing, we wouldn't be talking about it. We would talk about Tylenol today because it was such a large brand, but not in the same way, right? We wouldn't feel like, now if you have, headaches or, that's a time to diversify, or, feminine cramps, stuff like that. They take care of that pain, and they rebranded it that way. If they had not done that, you would still talk about Tylenol, but in a different way, right? And some people are just going to buy that regardless. They don't care, right? But those aren't the people you're trying to reach. The people you're trying to reach to build an actual brand that sustains itself over time is the people that understand you have good quality, or you have sustainability, or you've adjusted to the changes that needed to happen as you went along. So even with the startup, you start that way, right? With that as an understanding. You don't go into a startup pretending it's new, right? You go into a startup understanding, I want this to sustain itself for a long period of time. Do you understand? Because that's going to determine your decisions, right? You're going to make different decisions if you think this is temporary or if you're just living off the money. No one starts a business for money. It doesn't work like that. You may want it to, and for a while, if you're booming, like say you just take off real fast, boom. For a person that's been in business a long time, that's already scary because you're like, oh, fast rise, fast drop, fast rise, fast drop. That's just the pattern of business. But if you're new, you're like, yeah. And you start making these mistakes, right? You start combining your finances. You start living off your business money. You just grinding away at this job that, you're working 24, 48 hours. And none of that is going to sustain. It doesn't matter. You already started out quick. So you're like, and you start to diversify, right? Another one is that you don't focus on your cash flow. And I mean by this, okay, so I'm rolling. Like I'm just cookie baking is just, and I went ahead and I did the peanut butter and that's working. And, because you can sustain a mistake real long time in business. And, I got a chocolate chips because now everybody has a chocolate chip cookie and therefore I shall have a chocolate chip cookie. And you just boom and you start doing all this stuff. And something happens, somebody gets sick off of one of your cookies using Tylenol, maybe as the example. You didn't foresee that, But do you realize that they're not gonna only not buy your cookies, they're not gonna buy your peanut butter either. Or maybe your peanut butter comes out, it's great, but Laura Scudder's, for example, which is some of the best peanut butter going, makes a more efficient brand because they have like the old school region. And you're in trouble now because you expanded, number one, into a market that's huge, right? And you also expanded not thinking that the other markets were going to catch on to the fact that you were doing well. Right? They're going to be looking at you like, who's this little, Anna's peanut butter over here in the corner? Are they worried about you? No. Please don't make that mistake. Don't get into that mindset because that will kill you, that they're worried about you. They're not worried about you. They just recognize that that's a good idea. Oh, that's good. Let me go ahead and, okay. You know what? There's chocolate and cocoa in this particular peanut butter. I kind of like it. Add it. That's how fast it is for them. Like, add cocoa to that. It's pretty good. How about some hazel? Someone else will come up with something even more brilliant. How about some hazelnut? Cocoa, hazelnut, spread. Oh, and then the next thing you know, your sales are down, right? Because you're new. And if not, they might just crush you completely because maybe they're like, hey, we need to get rid of them completely because I'm tired of looking at them. Of course, you're not going to say those words, but that's kind of the part that you're not paying attention to when you start expanding. Because you knew a lot about this particular specialty cookie you made, but not about peanut butter. You understood peanut butter, you know how to make peanut butter, and your peanut butter's good. And you came up with a good idea to put peanut butter in it. But the reality of the situation is that Laura Scudder's has a brand. It's been around forever. If you want to pay the price for that peanut butter, because it's expensive, right? It's not cheap. You're not going to go out and Jiffy or something. It's expensive and it's hard to find, right? But if they come out and they're like, hey, we're going to do blah, 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 all the people that were looking at you now can just go to the brand that they already buy, which is Laura Scudder's, right? This is just an example. I don't know if people buy Laura Scudder's peanut butter. I happen to like it. So that's the mindsets that you need to be thinking about. When you fall into a business, start a business, you start thinking you're branding yourself, you have to look at cash flow. That was the point of what I was saying. All that goes into cash flow. And if you're spending on things that you really don't, I want a good coffee maker, so I'm gonna run out and buy, I'm gonna run out and buy, and you just start sort of putting things into this business or putting things into this expansion. Because remember, expansion takes dollars away from you. It also takes people away from you. And if you're not well versed on how to do this, you're gonna be eaten up by people that are well versed. Okay, this is another thing. Sometimes you had your cookies and everybody knows your cookies, and then you expanded peanut butter. Everybody liked your peanut butter, and the big people are like, oh, we already have that peanut butter, I don't care. And you're not, and then somebody new comes out and bam, same peanut butter. Did they steal that from you? No. It's just they have the same peanut butter, but they may add the hazelnut that you didn't think to add to it, right? As a secret ingredient, quote unquote, right? And now you don't know why it's doing so well. There's an extra little flavor in there that everybody just runs out and starts buying. You know what I mean? And a common mistake I feel like new businesses make is they compete against the other new business. And it's like, why are you doing that? Quit. Neither one of you have a brand. So you work on yours. You've already got your cookies. You got peanut butter that maybe you didn't need to have, but it's going to start losing revenue for you. Go back and focus on the original, right? Because that's your specialty. Your specialty was not peanut butter. Now you're off. And then what happens when you get in the mindset of, okay, I think the secret ingredient is hazelnut, and you start throwing some stuff in there, but that's their specialty. That's not your specialty, because it's their specialty because you know the audience told you it was, right? The customers, the clients, the stores, the market, and whomever has to do with peanut butter. I'm not only thinking about peanut butter, clearly, but I'm just using it as a base, right? To expand into something that makes no sense for what you're trying to do, right? And then you're gonna start going off into like 500 different directions. You're gonna lose money. It's just the way it is. So I know I get on you guys sometimes, and this is the first in the series with business involved, right? Because it's different from your finances, and that's really the if you take away anything without watching this multiple times, take away that you must separate the two, right? You cannot do personally what you can do in business. You cannot do in business what you can do personally. I mean, you literally can get away with the mistake in business a little bit longer than you would if you were in your personal life. It's going to show up really quick. Like, you're just going to be broke. That's the concept. It's going to show up quick, but not as long as your business. But remember, when you fall in a business, you fall harder because the stakes are higher. So my hope is to not just give you business tips. Let me just give you tips on how to sustain your business, because I've done that, right? I've sustained people's businesses. I've brought people out of the red. I've helped businesses, right, grow in some tough situations. But if it's a small business, you know, there's a lot of mistakes that people make that even bigger businesses make, but can get away with it, that you can't when you're starting out with something, okay? Let's see. Okay. I'm going to answer some questions because I have a couple of them. Not very many on this subject because it's new for a lot of people, but it says, I'm starting a business. Do I need a financial plan? Okay, so more addendum to this question is that the person is starting it from home. Yes. Yes, of course you do. Because that boils down to your money. Financially, you still have to have financial goals, right? You can't, that's what the financial plan is. That it's a financial plan, meaning your money is going to be based. Now, will it be as extensive as somebody that's already good in business? Sometimes, and this is important too, a person with greater financial literacy will exceed better, because that's the name of the game. At the end of the day, they're not basing their business decisions on other stuff. They're basing their business decisions on an understanding of how it's going to pan out financially. So they're probably going to do a lot better, right? I used Amazon in one of the examples, but I'm not sure that that's not a new idea. You know what I mean? That's not new. The reality is that people have thought of this stuff, delivery services, and people think of a lot of things. Restaurants. Why are some restaurants better than others? And sometimes the food at another restaurant is equally as good, if not better, than if you went to Spago's. But Spago's is Spago's. Why is Spago's Spago's? You have to start asking yourself those questions when you're building a business, because it's going to apply to how they manage things. Management is key, right? In personal finance, it's time management, right? You got to manage your time correctly. In business, time management, yes, it's important, but it's financial management that really determines where you're going to go. Because if your business crashes and you completely lose everything and you don't have financial literacy, you will not come back from that. It's just not going to happen. Sorry. I've seen it 1,000 times. You can get somebody to come in and do your finances, and then you will succeed. But if you personally are already having trouble handling your personal finances and you run into business finances and something unforeseen happens, somebody takes your brand down, you can't foresee those things, right? You can't foresee somebody skimming off, you bring somebody in and they skim off the top of your business. You trusted the person or you wouldn't have brought them in. You didn't foresee that being a part of that. And these are things that you have to bounce back from financially, because ultimately that's where your business can grow or not grow, be affected or not be affected, and you have to go in there with realistic expectations. That is another bonus tip. You will struggle less. You will not pay attention to the naysayers if you understand business, period. Because you're gonna already know what they're trying to tell you, something that you're like, I understand this is gonna happen. Yes, I know. You know what I mean? It'll give you that level of forward movement, and you won't be stopped by every little distraction, because there's gonna be distractions. Some purposely, some not purposely, but they're there. And you have to be prepared for them. And knowledge is why you're prepared for that, right? Because, like I said, a lot of people, when you're making these mistakes, they don't show up. Not in business. They don't show up right away. They're going to show up later. Probably at a time that you're like, oh my God, what just happened? It happens anywhere. So I'm talking to you also that are already established. You know the mistakes you're making. You know the corners you're trying to cut real quick. And you need to correct those, right? I'm talking to the wealthy and to the rich people right now, right? Or business-wise, because we're not talking about personal finance, we're talking about business finances. You know what you're doing. There's too many examples of how that didn't work out at the end, right? We do trials. So court cases, we see them all the time. We see when that failed for you. So don't start out like that. Just don't. Don't start out completely unaware and just excited about your cookies. Using cookies as the example, right? Okay, so yes, to answer the question. Okay, it's kind of a crazy question. I love it, but okay. The long and the short of this question, because it's kind of long, they're basically saying that the person that has been in this business, I'm assuming this is your husband because you said my husband, has kind of gone away ego-wise, right? It's the base of the question. So you're asking, will this affect the bottom line? I mean, I don't know, because I don't know what you mean by what you're saying. It's kind of a long question. I think you're feeling more like he's icing you out a little. I don't know, you're married. You know his personality a little better than I do. So I'll give a general answer, because I honestly couldn't answer that not knowing the people involved. But I can say that just when you're in a business, just be aware that you're not the only one, and be aware that it doesn't revolve around you. It also revolves around your finances that you could be abusing, and the people that you could be abusing. So it's a weird question, but I don't know. I felt like maybe if you had it, someone else had it. Okay, so want to start a business? Should I start today? Yeah, the whole point of me understanding is getting you in the mindset when you're in a broken and deficient mindset. Part of it is that you don't think you can do anything. You look at, there's too many, people in college, or there's too many people that make cookies, or there's too many, I'm not one of them. Those are special people. And you somehow get in this thought that they're special people. And it isn't true. They're just aware, right? This person is aware of what works for them. This is another bonus, okay? And I've said this before, and I will say it because it applies to business probably even faster than it applies to your personal finances. Don't mimic. Stop it. I don't see how many businesses come out with other people's idea. You will never sustain that. It does not sustain itself. If the person is talented in that area, if Amazon is Amazon, and you didn't think of that idea, but you're getting it from him and you want to just expand on what he's doing, okay, that'll probably work for about 10 minutes. Then you're done. Because the original, the inventor, the one that has the talent, his talent is going to sustain itself over a period of time. You're going to have to be finding new people to copy in your business, which means you're not going to ever make as much money as he is, right? You're just not. You'll always be a second little version of the original. Okay, so it applies to business. I said that in personal finance. I'm like, in your personal life, it's the same thing in business. Do not diminish your light, because it's all you're doing. This person is off doing whatever they do because that's their gift. I am not gonna go out and try to mimic, another Bank of America financial team. You know what I mean? Like, why am I doing that? I can ask them for advice because they've been doing it and they're good at it. That's a chance to learn. That's when you go ask people something. Like, if I want to learn from, another financial institution that has sustained itself over a long period of time, you just ask. But for me to go out and try to replicate that, it's not really possible. It's like trying to look like somebody else. You can't. Whatever features they have are unique to them. You can go out and get plastic surgery. You can go out and, whatever you feel like you need to do to look like this person. It is really a waste of time, because you're only going to be paled compared to the actual original. I mean, I can get all the plastic surgery I need to look like somebody I think, it's nice looking. But it doesn't work. Same thing with business. Ideas. That's why if you're really at the top of your game, you don't care who's taking what. Because they're never going to do it as well as you do, or you wouldn't be doing it if you weren't good at it. Okay, Amazon, I use that as an example oftentimes because the idea is so easy, right? Anybody probably thought about that 1,000 times. But they're not successful at it. Or they're successful, but not. He became the top, right? How did that happen? How did Amazon become the top in something so basic? It's delivery. Like, who didn't think of that? Right? It's because I talk in another video about execution. And execution in business, as it applies to finances, has to do with your gift of understanding when to expand, not getting caught up, how to adjust your own gifts, right, to be competitive. But the people make a lot of mistakes when they just go out and try to replicate what Amazon is doing. No, because you can just go to Amazon, right? Somebody might have that gift and adjust it. Maybe somebody has the same gift and they might do it cheaper. And so you're like, oh, it's cheaper to go to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do that. That's how I'd adjust. But that's not that person mimicking. That's that person saying, this is a better way to do this. I'm just going to do it this way. But within confines of their own gift. Okay? Anything else? Let's see what he says. Can you run a successful business without doing your own finances? I'm guessing that question is, should you get an advisor? Yes, I always think you should. And I feel like that's important. Do you have to get one right away? If you're good with money, no. If you are, yes. If you are really bad with money, so you just know that's not your gift. Because sometimes you can try, but you're going to affect your business. You can't try to do good finances. It's too large of a piece of the puzzle for you to be trying at that. If you're just not, sometimes you just hire a good team, right? You've heard people say that. I'm not good at this. I just hire a good team. You hear the people on Shark Tank say that all the time, right? Oh, I'm not good at this. I just hire a good team. That's because you got to know your strengths and what the weakness is, right? You need to SWOT yourself. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? You have to know these things. So if you don't and you're struggling to do your finances, you're hurting your business. You can get away with that in personal finances. You'll just be broke. But in business, it's hurting your bottom line. You're just not good at money. Just accept, right? You're running around spending too much. Then you need to rely on something or someone that can do that. That's when you need to get somebody in there that can help you from Jump Street. Because stop lying to yourself from Jump Street, because it's only going to hurt you down the road, right? And you may be in a position where you just never make as much money as you can. How do you turn a business around? You turn the profit around. Sometimes I go in there, I see a business, I'm like, do you not recognize this is why you're dying? Like, stop this. And they just never saw it. They just like, I don't know what you're getting out of that. That's just not the gift. It's just not there. And that's okay. They were smart enough to get somebody to get them the help that they need. So, can you? Yes, you can. Just, put that in your budget immediately on that you need someone to help you with finances. Okay? Let's see if there's anything else we need to cover with this is the first in the business. Broke. Should I start a business? And I mean broken mindset, right? Okay. Here's another one. I just want to give this to you for sure. In personal finances, I'll tell you, you need to have a year's worth of, a year's worth of money to pay all your bills without needing a job, right? That's how it determines your wealth, right? I talked about that. Go back and look at those videos. In business, you cannot do that for that long, necessarily, right? If you're a starter. So your goal is more 4 months, 2 months in the beginning. But do have it. Do prepare operationally for the cost and try to sustain those for as long as you can, even in the beginning. Because you're not thinking you need to do that, but you do. You do. Especially if you have a staff. I don't care if you have a staff of 2 people. Those 2 people need that job. So you don't want to be coming to them like, oh, can't pay you. If it's family, they might be like, oh, okay, fine. But if it's not, and you just can't pay them, that's kind of harsh on them too. So you want to think about these things as you're preparing for your business. That's why you need a plan. You need a plan because you have to be prepared as you develop expansion things, right? As you want to expand. Is it smart for you to do that? Should I make peanut butter if my macaroons are doing fine? Not really. Do I need to do, is it going to make me more money? And is it necessary for it to make me more money? Sometimes you can just stick to what you're doing and probably make more money than if you took money away from what you were doing to expand on something you just know a little bit about or that you're capable of. People. Here's my final bit of advice. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Stop it. I have a lot of capabilities. I do not use them all. It's just not necessary. It isn't. I'm sorry. You will find as you grow and expand as a person that you have a lot of things that you're capable of doing. You are capable of a lot of things, but that doesn't mean you need to be doing it, right? I can bake cookies. I'm very good at it. I'm very capable. Is that a business for me? No, it isn't. And I have to know that. I have to understand that I'm capable of that, but not. You hear me? That is a running theme other than stop mimicking people. And it's all to get you to apply your own gifts. Nobody can replicate what you can do. Nobody can look like you, talk like you, say the things you say, open the businesses that you open. And if you're smart, you will recognize that. If you're a smart business person, that's why they're smart business people. They recognize, okay, I can't balance a checkbook. I am not going to try to balance an entire business's checkbook. I'm not doing that. They recognize these things, right? And so you must recognize these things in yourself before you start your business. And then if you're already in the middle of it and you're recognizing it and you haven't applied it, apply. So remember those. Mimicking, don't do it. Capabilities, I'm capable of a lot of things. You're capable of a lot of things. That does not mean you should be doing it. Okay? And when you find people that are better at what you're doing, that's the time to ask questions. It's not the time to be like, oh, let me start, I can do better than Amazon. Maybe you can't. That's why he's Amazon, right? Oh, but the idea is so basic. Yeah, I understand that the idea is basic, but execution applies here and applies to anything. How you execute something. If someone is gifted at something, it's because they can execute well. I use Michael Jordan as an example because so many people copied his routine. So many people copy Kobe Bryant's routine. This is why they're telling you the routine, because it doesn't matter. You can do it or not do it. It's not going to change their capabilities and that program worked for them. Tiger Woods put out an entire book on how he does what he does and still was Tiger Woods. I mean, it didn't matter. He'll tell you all his secrets. It doesn't matter because they're not secrets. He's just very talented and gifted. He's got a vision on the spot that you don't have in the middle of that game. When he's playing golf, he meaning Tiger Woods, he has a vision that you can't see. He's seeing something, an opportunity, while he's in the midst of it. He's doing it right there at the time. So you can't replicate that. That's not replicable, right? You're not capable of doing it. Now you can do everything he does before that. Maybe he practices at 8 instead of 9 every morning, or he drinks chamomile tea at night or something. And you do all these, things. He wakes up at 5 or whatever. And you start replicating you're doing all this, but your outcome is not going to be the same. Because when it comes down to actually physically doing the act, it's going to be different, right? His execution is going to be far greater than yours, right? So, why waste the time? Create your own. This is my theory, okay? I'm not really one to copy people, okay? And I'm a little rebel when it comes to business because I don't look at what other people are doing in business. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I can copy. I already know in the back of my mind I can copy everything the successful person does, and it's not going to make me any more successful. I have to go out and do what I can do because there's only one me, and there's only one my team, and and there's them and their team. And chances are they've learned over the years. If you're a startup, you started. And you will find that what worked for them can't work for you because the market has changed, right? Maybe what Amazon did in the beginning as his startup, you can't do anymore. When I started in entertainment, a lot of those things that I did to build my career, you can't do anymore. It just doesn't work. The whole game has changed now. Changed even more after COVID. So you can't start the same way. I can tell you what I did, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you hear me tell the stories, but it doesn't translate. And I was smart enough to get out when it was time to get out, right? You have to know what you're ready to do. And sometimes if you follow that instinct, it'll always be better and before something crazy actually happens. This is Some people have good instincts. And you're like, yeah, because they're paying attention to what's working for them, right? They're not focused on and that's what you can't replicate. You can't replicate someone else's instincts. You can't replicate Michael Jordan's instincts in the middle of a game. You can't replicate Tiger Woods' instincts in the middle of a game. You can't replicate Steve Jobs' instincts when he was alive that made him change some sort of technology, something in Microsoft that became innovative at the time, because he was doing it on the spot. He was applying his talent. And no matter how many times everybody tried to copy his routine, nobody else was Steve Jobs. He was. Loved him or hated him. That's who he was. And he worked within those confines. So, a little preachy at the end. Starting the series to talk about business. And hopefully to encourage you to start one, right? If you're on the fence about this, or you're struggling with this, and you're broke, in mind or just physically broke. Maybe you just legitly broke. You've lost a business and you don't know where to go from here. Your business was good and it was good for years and now it's dying. We're gonna cover all this stuff. We're gonna cover it and we're gonna give you some tips and clues and especially how to adjust, because remember, COVID-19 happened. No business is the same. Right? That old model, bam, it has crashed and burned. And if you're still hanging on to that, I'm sorry. The truth of the matter is, if you're following along with the innovation and the changes that need to be made, that model is gone. But some of you are set in your ways, carry on. I'm not here to take that away from you, but I am here to just present to you options because the model changes as life changes, right? It has to, right? There's 2 billion people on YouTube, right? The model has changed, right? If you're smart, you would have adjusted to that. If you're not, okay. Even cookie making changed, right? After Mrs. Fields started, who I always use as a good example of how to start a business. Changed, not the same. 2 billion gajillion, and yet Oreos still happening. Still happening. You will still find and buy, not just find, you will still purchase an Oreo. It's just gonna happen. And I don't know how long Oreo's been around. You can't even, let me get the date on when Oreo started. It was a long time ago. It's literally been around for decade after decade after decade. I mean, it's just been on forever. And it keeps going. You have to ask yourself, why is Oreo still Oreo? And some of these other cookies, I don't even buy them anymore. They're still there. Don't like them as much, or the recipe changed and doesn't taste the same anymore. Something had my taste buds changed. Whatever, it changed. But Oreo maintains its cookie status, as it were. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, anything I can do to help. So always ask questions. This one was sort of just something I wanted to address. I can't read that far. Thank you. Oreo came out March 6th, 1912. Okay. See, my audience is great. Thanks, guys. So that's when Oreo cookie came out. And so think about how long that is. And yet you will, I just had an Oreo yesterday. And I'm not lying about that. I literally just ate an Oreo and Oreo flies off the shelves. Sometimes you can't even find it, the one you want. So just to say that, hopefully I'm teaching you something. Hopefully we learn as we go through this particular series. And it encourages you. My goal is to get you to do the things that you don't normally do. That's the kind of personality I have. I don't want you to sit at home, broke, on welfare, feeling like that's where you have to be. I don't care if you have 8 kids. It doesn't matter. And I don't want you standing at the top of your business going, it's never gonna, it's always gonna be what it is. You know what I mean? With your ego intact. I want you to realize that we're all really the same. And we can crash and burn at any time. And we can build and grow at any time. Okay? I haven't said that. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for those of you that give me little tips. And thanks for those of you that ask questions. And I will see you